Praise be to Jesus Christ and welcome to Catholic Forum. I'm your host, Deacon Jim Thorndale. I'd like to welcome all those who are joining us on public TV and those who might be joining us on podcast. Today we're having a conversation which is crucial to every diocese, and it's communication. And it's really about communicating the good news. And it's an understanding of how we need to have people who, within our diocese, to help us function as a church, to spread the good news throughout the parishes, throughout the media, and everything else. And tonight we have somebody who's really becoming an expert on that. His name is Carl Apple. Carl, thank you for being here.
It's my pleasure to be here.
And you are the communication director for the Diocese of Grand Rapids.
That's right.
Wonderful, wonderful. How long have you been in that position?
A little over a year.
A little over a year.
A little over a year now, yeah.
Well, let's go back a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got here. What brought you to this diocese? Or where did you come from?
Well, if you had have told me 2 years ago that I'd be working full-time for the Catholic Church, I would have said you were crazy, because I was a TV news reporter, and I'd done that for about 10 years. I'm from Holland originally,
okay.
So I was a lifelong...
City, not the country.
Not the country, no.
Okay.
Though around here, you never know. You know, there's a Dutch around here.
Right.
So yeah, but I'm from Holland, St. Francis de Sales in Holland. Okay. My first communion there. I was married there, and
wow.
but you know, I went to college, studied broadcasting, and eventually became a news reporter.
Okay.
Lucky enough to find a job, kind of in my hometown. I was
wow.
here in Grand Rapids, which is kind of rare. So
okay.
I worked here I was in the business for about 12 years. And you know, there's a point where you hit a crossroad. I think in every sure. job, or in many, where you
sure.
look to. You know, am I going to stay? Am I going to maybe look at something different?
Okay.
In communications, it's not unusual for someone to go from journalism to maybe public relations or marketing.
Okay. Now, are you trained in college in communications?
And yes, I have a bachelor's degree in broadcasting
okay.
and a master's degree in communications.
Okay.
So, so I've studied journalism, worked in journalism, but I've also studied crisis communication and how organizations respond, and sort of the larger communication theory that goes into all that.
Yeah.
And so I was, you know, kind of looking around. I was looking to get out of the business, and well, you know, if you want to
get out of the business, you want to get out of journalism?
I wanted to get out of TV. Yeah,
okay.
I was looking to, you know, I have a family. I have 3 kids at home,
right.
and well, TV news is sort of TV news.
That's
you know,
right.
there's some late nights. There's a lot of that knocking on doors in the cold in the middle of the night and those
yes.
kinds of things. And I was looking to move on, and this job opened up. You know, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans.
Isn't that the truth? Isn't that the truth? So you were looking more to an 8 to 5 position,
well,
or
yeah.
something within that.
Maybe. I mean, and I don't think I found that.
Okay. Yeah, I'm sure you haven't.
And,
not working for the church.
No, I didn't find it 8 to 5. I sort of thought I did, but that's not the case.
Could you have ever imagined that God was calling you into a relationship with His church in this type of way?
No, and there's a lot that you don't know about,
yeah.
you know, and there's a lot you can't see coming right in front of you.
Yeah.
And even this job, I thought I had it all figured out. I'll go, this is what the job will look like, and this is what it will be like to work for the bishop, and these are some of the kinds of things I might see. I didn't have the slightest clue.
How would you have known there was an opening for this? Well, how did that transpire?
It's a small town.
Yeah.
It's a small town. And well, it's just like anything. I mean, lawyers know where lawyers
right.
are going.
Right.
Doctors know what doctors are doing. In the communications business, it's kind of the same way.
Okay.
I mean, if there's a position like this in town, it might be for a hospital.
Okay.
It might be for a big company. It might be for an airport, right?
Right.
I mean, you kind of know when those positions open up, and you know when someone leaves. And the communications director of the diocese for many years, Mary Harmon.
Of course.
I knew that she was leaving,
okay.
and you know there was talk about maybe who's going to do that. You
so
know?
the secular media would also know what's going on with the faith-filled media too.
We do, because well, you know, we depend on each other.
That's
I mean,
right.
I knew Mary very well because, you know, you cover the Catholic diocese,
right.
just like I know the reporters very well. And if I were to leave, there would be people there who would probably say, "We know Carl, and maybe that's a job I'd be interested in."
Exactly.
You know?
So did you? You had to go through an interview process, obviously.
Yeah, that's
a lot of competition.
Well, I don't know about that as much as it just, you know, they want to make sure they got someone they can trust, and someone
yeah.
who's faithful, I'm sure, and someone who kind of knows their stuff, and you know, that involved, of course, Bishop Hurley
yeah.
and the Chancellor, Ed Carey, and many others who. And you know, one of the last interviews, there was maybe 7 or 8 people yeah. there, you know, and they're all asking.
A little bit nerve-wracking.
A little nerve-wracking,
yeah.
but and you know, of course, what do I know? I don't know what to expect.
Yeah.
I'd never worked for the church, and frankly, Deacon Jim, I I'm not a deacon, and I'm not necessarily. I mean, none of us think we're all sinners, right?
Amen.
We're all sinners, and I didn't know why me, and how would I fit, but you know, here I am.
Well, but you have a unique gift, obviously, with communication, and they saw that in you, and that's important because it is a crucial role in our diocese, because, like we said, communication is really the key of conversation and relating with one another. And if communication isn't proper, things can really go astray quickly, as you probably know.
It can, yeah, and you know, nowadays the media plays a big part of that.
Yeah.
It plays a big part of that, knowing, knowing how to make those relationships, knowing, when to really give a lot of information,
Exactly.
when to maybe keep a tighter hold on things until the right time, and knowing how all that works is important, and being able to manage multiple projects at once, be it when something big's going on or something when nothing's going on, you know?
You know, Carl, you're kind of in a unique time too, because in your young experience here already, you've gone through 2 bishops and a pope.
That's right.
They've changed for you. Does that change the dynamics of your job? Well, obviously it would for the bishop. The bishop changing because he really is your boss, isn't that right?
That's right, and I was just getting to know Bishop Hurley, you know, and but I mean, I knew he was leaving, and on my very first day, he sat me down and said, "Okay, here's the deal, Carl. You know, I've sent my letter to Rome, and I don't know when I'm going to leave, but it will probably be within a year or two." And it was almost exactly a year, and now we're all getting to know Bishop Walkowiak, and I would like to, I don't know what he would say, but I would like to think that relationship's gotten off to a pretty good start.
Yes, exactly.
He's got some great ideas, and I think, but it's true that my role went from being, it changed a little bit, right? I'm a little bit more of an advisor to Bishop Walkowiak, I think, because he's still figuring out how to be a bishop. He was a pastor.
But that'll probably metamorphose as time goes on too. That'll change because he's going to have to rely more on you for the communications effort and everything else too. How involved and how closely were you tied with Bishop Hurley when he? And for those that are watching us, let us tell them too. We're talking about the Diocese of Grand Rapids. Bishop Walter Hurley was with us for 8 years, 8 or 9 years. 8 or 9 years.
Yep, that's right.
And then on his retirement, we brought in Bishop David Walkowiak, who's been here now how long?
4 months as of this taping. 4 months.
And he came out of a priesthood in a parish and elevated to a bishop.
Very, very popular priest, but to say he was just sort of your parish neighborhood priest is a little inaccurate. In that he's a accomplished canon lawyer, and he was the head of a seminary. He had held positions in the Diocese of Cleveland.
The Lord was grooming him.
So so I mean, this he tells these stories about it was a shock and he had no idea. But I mean, really, if you're someone like that, you probably have to know that maybe something greater is calling.
Exactly. So give us a little sense of, first of all, working for Bishop Hurley. What was that like? And first of all, I should say this. Give us specifics on what your requirements are and what your responsibilities are in your position.
Well, sure. I'm blessed to have a staff of 3 people. And so they help me in a number of ways. There's what I would like to think is a vibrant diocesan website, dioceseofgrandrapids.org. We're constantly updating that website.
It is a good one, too.
With events and news and photos. And, of course, there's social media that goes with that in the year 2013, almost 14. And so there's that presence, which is a day-to-day. There's Faith Grand Rapids Magazine, which many of us are familiar with, I'm sure, which comes out 10 times a year. I would be the editor-in-chief. There's a managing editor of that who takes care of a lot of the nuts and bolts, but that requires constant work.
That's going to take a lot of time.
It does. It does, though. We're fortunate to have great writers and photographers. I'm not out on the streets interviewing people like I used to. So, but I enjoy that. And as a former journalist, that's one of my favorite parts of my job.
So that really gives you some credibility when you're looking at it to oversee that because you've done it.
A little bit, though Deacon Jim, I mean, being a TV news reporter is a heck of a lot different than doing a Catholic magazine. Very, very different. Though, I think from time to time, I would like to think that my skills come in handy. So, a website, a magazine, there's a weekly televised mass from the cathedral, though we, again, have a staff and a crew, and in many cases that goes very, very well, and there aren't too many bumps in the road, but there's supervision there. public relations, marketing for the diocese, media relations. I've extended, one of the first things I did when I was hired is I extended an offer to all the parishes and to all the schools.
Wonderful.
Saying, look, if you need help in any of these endeavors, I'm a phone call away, here's my cell phone. And sometimes it's good,
yeah.
Sometimes it's bad. I get those calls
good
too.
With bad, right?
Yeah, sometimes it's bad. You know, it's you know, not a joking matter, but we kind of jest that I don't want anybody walking into my office and closing the door. That's always bad.
That's never a good sign.
It's probably not a good sign.
Yeah.
It's not to tell a funny joke. You know,
Yeah,
it's usually
exactly.
because, you know, something happened and we gotta sort of figure out how people need to know about this. You know.
But in your position, being the director of communications, you probably have to also be some type of barrier for the diocese. And like you said, kind of weigh your words and watch what we're saying at times.
We do. Transparency is important, though.
Yeah, I know.
Transparency is very important, and no one taught me that better than Bishop Hurley, because that was really his mantra with communications. Is transparency. You don't hide stuff. We've seen how that can go.
That never does.
And I'd like to think that you know, in most respects, the Diocese of Grand Rapids over the years has done it the right way.
Yeah, and I tip my hat to Bishop Hurley, because he really was transparent, and he did what was necessary. Not always well received, but that wasn't his motive. His motive was to do what was right.
That's right.
And I understand that, and it took courage to do that. And like I said, I give him all that credit. But now you're into Bishop Walkowiak. And your duty, while they remain the same, the relationship has to grow, I would assume.
It is, yeah. And you know, we're still kind of figuring him out, yeah. I guess, you know. But he's, you know, one thing to keep in mind is Bishop Walkowiak, in fact, many people seeing this may have met him already, may have seen him in his parish,
yes.
Because every weekend he's out at a parish, at least many. He was in Rome for his new bishop's orientation, but
right.
Yeah, he's been out and about and really trying to meet people in the community leaders, many of them not even Catholic.
Okay.
We have a meeting set up in a few weeks with the superintendent of Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Oh, wonderful.
You know, so people like that. He's getting out and meeting people. So, you know, I don't see Bishop Walkowiak as much as I saw Bishop Hurley.
But I'm sure, again, that will change, because it's the newness of his job where he needs the exposure.
That's right.
But as you're growing in your position and he's growing in his position, obviously you're going to be privy to a lot of things that are going to go on in the diocese. I know you can't tell us everything that's going to go on, but there's got to be some excitement with a new bishop, as always, because expectations of people come into play.
Yeah, you know, we say in our office, we have sort of saying, we say it's a big church.
It's what?
It's a big church.
Yes, it's a big church. Yes.
You know, it's a big church. And you know, you really don't know what you're going to get sometimes. Yeah. Be it your parish priest, a bishop, you know, you really don't know what you're going to get, what his background's going to be, what his priorities are going to be, you know, what his sense of humor is going to be like, you know, and you have to figure all that out.
You do.
And you're right.
You have to learn the man.
We're talking about ideas, and I think he has a vision. Okay. For some of the things he wants to see in this diocese. Okay. And even after 4 months, that is very clear. I can't break anything on the Catholic Forum, but I will say that do not be surprised. Do not be surprised if you hear some things and you think, wow. Yeah. You know, he's really got some ideas.
Well, I've had an opportunity to sit down with him for an hour, and I found him a man of great strength and determination. I could see he was goal-oriented. So I really had the sense that we're going to see great things come out of him. Let me ask you this: being in the secular media for many years, and now you're on the faith side of the communication, how does the secular media treat our diocese?
That's a great question. It's hard to answer, though. Okay. It's hard to answer because you know, one thing to keep in mind is when you look at the media landscape, times have changed, and the days of a newspaper having a dedicated reporter for every beat you could possibly imagine, religion, local government, every city having their own reporter, and so forth. 5 different sports reporters. I mean, those days are really gone. Okay. And religion's gone with it. And I think if you follow the Grand Rapids Press, I mean, that religion section's gotten a little smaller.
It's gotten considerably smaller.
Absolutely. And so we have reporters who we tend to see that cover us, but it's tough sometimes, and it's tough for them because they probably got 6 or 7 other beats they're following.
Yeah, they do.
And I'm not saying that you have to be Catholic to cover the Catholic Church,
right.
But you have to do some homework. You have to do some homework because we're kind of our own little world.
Yeah, we are a very deep, profound church.
Absolutely, and it can be I think a little intimidating for especially a TV reporter who's just stopping by, and they're going to just knock out a quick story. It's like, well, slow down, and you got to explain things.
Yeah, I learned the hard way through the media on one of our Catholic men's conferences that one of our speakers spoke to a media spokesperson, and I'm still not sure how that works, and maybe you can tell me, but I understand somebody can interview and then somebody else can write the title. Is that correct?
Yeah, sure. It happens.
That happens.
It happens.
And things can really get pulled out of context and lose the understanding of what the conversation was.
Welcome to my world, Deacon Jim. Welcome to my world. That's absolutely right. And and again, Bishop Hurley, he tried not to. That was kind of his thing. He tried not to get too worked up about it because in the end, you can only do what you can only do.
That's true. That's true.
You can only do what you can only do, and you can control messages, and you can do whatever you want. But in the end, once they leave your office, you don't know what's going to end up in the paper. You really don't.
If you knew that someone like Bishop Hurley or Bishop Wolkowiak was going to be interviewed, would you walk them through some potential questions, or would you kind of rehearse a little bit on what
maybe a little bit. It depends what the topic is.
Okay.
One thing to keep in mind is those guys are both much smarter than I am. so and that's important to note too. And
but you have the background in the media.
No, you're right, and I say that kind of tongue in cheek.
I know.
But it depends what the topic is, and it depends. There are some situations I might know more about whatever it is we're here to discuss.
Yeah.
Others maybe not. But it's not uncommon maybe to go through, I guess we'd call them talking points. Hey, this is what we're trying to say, and this is and it's important to kind of get back to the message.
Sure.
And if you're here to talk about a capital campaign or a fundraising goal or a new building that's being built, if that's why you're called and the questions start coming out about goodness, anything, life issues, women in the church, whatever it is that reporter wants to bring up, it's fine to answer those questions, and you certainly don't want to be rude, but I think it's the job of a polished interviewee, be it the bishop or myself, to try to get back to the message.
Bring it back full circle.
You got to bring it back to the message, and that's easier said than done.
Yeah, I think it would be. In the time you've been here, have you seen a change, or you've probably made some changes yourself in the position, I would imagine. Have you done some changing within that position from when Mary Hartman was there?
Well, gosh, I suppose little things here and there. Now the big thing that I'm proud of is that we've started an evangelization campaign.
Okay.
It's
Tell us about that.
Yeah, well, it's called Always Welcome.
Okay.
Now the goal, put very simply, is we're going to do some advertising. Okay.
Good.
We're going to put commercials on TV. We're going to put them on the radio, and we don't want that to go into a vacuum. So concurrently, we're working with parishes.
Okay.
Our Office of Pastoral Ministries working with parishes because we want to make sure that the people in the pews feel vested in the campaign, that they know about it,
Good.
and that if somebody talks to them about it, that's you people.
That's right.
Right? If somebody talks to you about it and they say, hey, Bob, you're Catholic. I saw that commercial on the air. Then you say, you're right. I'm Catholic. Want to go to Mass?
That's right.
Right?
What a great lead-in.
Right? You know what I mean? That's the well. And if somebody talks to you about it, well, the commercial did its job.
Exactly.
And I think the goal is for us to do our job and to use those kinds of things as conversation starters.
And I think in many ways we've been a little lax in our Catholic faith, in our Catholic Church, in using the media in that respect. Let's take a look at that commercial.
Change is happening all around us, and we are always here to spread the gospel of Christ, here to help people discover and renew their faith, to protect life in all its forms. Always here to educate our future leaders, to embrace and celebrate diversity. Always here serving others. We are always here, and you are always welcome.
I was privy to see, didn't I have a chance to see one of those?
That's right, yeah, we looked at those.
Yeah, and I did have a chance, and they're very powerful.
Or when somebody says, you know, I mean, how many of us have been approached by someone who's not Catholic? How about that Pope Francis?
That's right.
Right? Well, you don't end the conversation there.
That's right.
You say something, right? Pope Francis, well, that's who we are.
Exactly.
He is who we are. And then you use that as an opportunity, you know?
You know, another thing too, Carl, is we as Catholics aren't as quick to invite other people into our church.
Yeah, it can be hard.
Yeah, it's hard. Where other denominations are much more readily inviting us into theirs.
I grew up in Holland.
Yeah.
I grew up in Holland.
Yeah.
And I attended my buddy's big Christian Reformed church, which was great, a great experience.
Wow.
Oh, I was memorizing Bible verses and doing the things we typically don't do, but it's a great environment and everything. But I wasn't inviting him to my church, you know?
And think about that. There was a reason why. You know, and I'm not here to discuss that, but
Sure, yeah,
you know, we need to be more open on that, and that's what these commercials really can do, is to give us the confidence to have the conversation. But it should also entice Catholics to learn the response and how to respond to that, and that's part of communication.
And that's the new evangelization,
Yeah.
right? It's going out and each of us learning.
Yes.
And so we can all do our part individually. And you know, perhaps we're here to talk about mass media or TV or interviews or all of that baloney. But in the end, none of that means a thing if individually we can't, individually with our acquaintances, friends, family, colleagues, have those conversations.
Yeah. If we can't articulate our faith, then we run into trouble. You know, you brought up the new evangelization. I know it's a big topic in the church, and Pope John Paul was so strong in that about, and he said the two biggest problems within, particularly the Western culture today, was moral relativism and people not taking personal responsibility. And I think a little bit of what we're alluding to with these commercials is really bringing people to an understanding that we don't live in a moral relativistic world. We live in the Catholic Church, and there is a depth and a profound truth within our church. And what I saw was going to articulate that. It was kind of welcoming people back into our church, correct?
That's right. Yeah. You're always here. Pardon me. We are always here, and you are always welcome. That's sort of the catch.
Yeah.
We are always here because we've always been here.
That's right.
And you are always welcome. And I don't know if that's such a simple message, but I don't know if that message has been so clear, you know?
Well, it probably hasn't been because the people in the pews haven't articulated it as well. And
Maybe.
you know, it's still the ground up in our church. It's the people that really are the church. And we need to bring them back into this experience and to be part of that message that you're putting out there.
Yeah, and you know, I've told the story where in my neighborhood in Grand Rapids, I was with my kids. This was a few years ago. We've since moved, but where I was walking with my kids, and it was a Sunday, and I can't remember if we'd already gone to Mass or maybe we didn't go or weren't going to go or whatever. And there was a Reformed church on the corner, and I'm there with my two little ones at the time, and a lady just standing outside the church says, "Hey, you! Come on in." Right? How
that wonderful?
simple is that?
Yeah.
But the question is, does that happen at Catholic churches? Maybe not, right?
Well, in somewhere we got a little sophisticated, I think, and we didn't have that daringness to do that. But you know, now we should have those churches open. Those doors should be open. Say, "Come on in," because we have the full. And we don't say that way, but we really have. We have Christ present in this church like you do, but we come in and see what we're about. Yeah. See what we're about and enjoy the Catholic Church. So here you are in this position, a year and a half now. Is there anything else you can tell us or what we can anticipate, or is there anything we can kind of look forward to?
Well, you know, I'll say this, Deacon Jim. You know, we talk about the Our Faith, Our Future pastoral plan.
Right.
And I think the part of that plan that has you know, garnered the most attention involved you know, parishes and what, you know, what do those look like? And are we going to open up new ones? Are we going to consolidate? Are we going to merge some? But that plan was much bigger than that. That plan involved sort of a recipe for vital parishes. Okay. And I encourage anyone to go on our website, dioceseofgrandrapids.org, main page, there's an Our Faith, Our Future section. Click on it, there's resources there, and you can download the vision for vital parishes. Yep. And it goes way beyond, are we gonna turn a parish into an office or an office into something else? We're talking about what parishes really need to be vital
Exactly,
environments,
exactly.
okay? And all I can say is that's important to Bishop Walkowiak.
Yes,
And
that's
that's his
wonderful.
vision moving forward, is
Wonderful.
how to make the parishes vital and give them the resources they need to succeed.
You know, Carl, I had a nice conversation with Dave Faber also in that, and he was expressing the same thing you are. He's the superintendent of our Catholic schools. And Dave was same thing too, is that we now have a vision and a process of where we can really make our schools what they need to be in this new millennium we're in. It's a different time.
Well, Catholic schools are important.
Yeah.
They're very important, and
It
you know,
is.
you can make a real strong argument without those. I don't want to see what the church looks like without those Catholic schools.
No, because they were so important to me and my children growing up, and I can see the vitality of them returning again, because we just have to do things different ways.
Yeah, and you know, I work in an office with a handful of people, right? But there are really talented people all across the diocese.
Yeah.
We're talking about 11 counties. Every parish is loaded with people, not just who are paid employees, but volunteers who really make these places go. And I'm glad to be a part of that.
Let me ask you this question. You got a little tired of the secular media of that. Are you ever getting bored with this job? Do you see, or is this continuing, just always changing and growing?
You know, not yet. I'm not bored of it yet.
Okay.
And if you look at, you mentioned it earlier, that first year, you know, when you look at all the stuff that happened in that first year,
Yeah.
I don't want to plan for another new bishop. I'm done with so the next guy can do that. That's a lot of work.
It
But you
is.
know, between the new pope and figuring out who he is, and
Yeah.
our new bishop and figuring out who he is,
Yes.
and on any given day, the wondrous things that can happen in any of our parishes, and it's my responsibility to share that with the world. Hey, it never gets old.
That's wonderful. And, you know, you make a great point, because you have two men now of vision, Pope Francis and Bishop Walkowiak, and they're going to be the shepherds who are going to bring the new message to our church, and then it's going to be your responsibility to help articulate that
Yeah, that's right.
in a different and a profound way. So I tip my hat to you. I mean, it's a lot of work, but you know, we need people like you in our church. We need people like you who are dedicated to the task of evangelizing in the way that you do. And really, it's a ministry for you.
It is, my own faith gone through. I mean, you can't come to a job like this
Right.
and have your faith not go through some changes.
Yeah.
You know, and how much, be it how much you pray or how you pray, and,
Yes.
and how that looks, and how much time you're spending in that environment, and what you're asking God for.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
It
thanks be to
changes.
God, you're around a lot of prayerful people, and that's a wonderful blessing. Carl, I want to thank you for being here. It's been a pleasure having you here, and I hope that the people can have a profound sense that our diocese is on the move and things are changing. It's all for the better. I want to thank everybody for joining us tonight, and as always, we give all praise to Jesus Christ in the name of the Father, and the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.